where those who perceive truth may strive to make others see.
A big, powerful America, and shoot them for what?
On that continent, we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other.
I want you to imagine that you are with your boss, and you guys are in a house, but the police have surrounded this house, and they're about to come in. And your boss tells you to hide in the closet while he's still on the open, and you do this, but in the midst of hiding, you keep an eye out on him, and you notice that he pulls out a chair, sits it in the middle of the room, and he sits backwards in the chair, and he puts a black coat over him. And the police bust in, they search, and they don't find him. Good evening, folks. This episode, we're talking about really the Renaissance in Haiti, and in particular, we're talking about we're going to reference this story pretty heavily from Whom the Dogs Spy by Raymond Joseph. Now, this book is really, I don't personally know too much about the history of Haiti, and this is certainly something that, so I was really surprised at a few things, but I think a lot of Americans really share this lack of understanding about our neighbor, and really how intertwined the history, particularly the history of Haiti, has with the history of America in general. And it's pretty crazy, but unfortunately, I think we've developed a lot of stigmas, and this idea of what Haiti is. And I think really this is the perception of what we have of Haiti, and really what seems to be rooted in instability, which is definitely something in terms of if you compare it to the American neighbor. I think still there is something that we really like. We've developed perceptions beyond the instability that are really linked to this idea of really being its revolution and overthrow of France in this history of Haiti. And the idea is a lot of us have kind of fallen for this perception of if the West isn't in control, then chaos will ensue. And I think that this may have a lot to do with the instability, but I think this isn't the actuality of Haiti's situation. I think this is something that we should really understand as more purposeful in terms of the situation in Haiti. I remember particularly I do believe it was Haiti. I'm not quite sure. I know it was one of the islands, but I do believe it was Haiti where there was a situation where there was like literally people, our military going in and taking gold from a country. And this was, I think, a bank. It was like it was a bank that was involved with this major bank, still up and running today. But the idea when asked about this was these people, basically wouldn't know what to do with this amount of gold, and it was like it's pretty striking in terms of the idea of where Haiti is now versus where they could have been. And that wasn't in this book. And I'm not sure if that. I'm pretty sure that was Haiti, but I'll double check that. I gotta double check that. In terms of Haiti and this idea of history, the overthrow of France and the American Revolution from Europe kind of had a lot of overlap in terms of the instability in Haiti, or the revolution in Haiti gave way to really loosen the grip that a lot of the European, it loosens the grip of the European influence on this area in general, and that right there led way to really a lot of what took place in terms of the American Revolution. Our governor of, or the person who discovered Illinois or Chicago was also of Haitian influence, but it was, in terms of the revolution in general, it was this guy, Duty Bookman, and it was before before this revolution really took root in Haiti. I think he had a ritual, and a ritual that was voodoo, but it was more so like to kind of to undo what a lot of Christianity would really have taken root in terms of the influence of the invaders was with a Christian overtone. And this guy, he got together and kind of had this ritual, and really emboldened, it seems like really emboldened Haiti to kind of the people of Haiti to take over for themselves and undo what was, and undo the influence, or to really loosen the grip of the influence and revolt against France in general. Very, very, in terms of this idea of voodoo and the voodoo influence, I think it was very much something that was strong in this idea of independence, and in terms of how a lot of Christians view Haiti in terms of developing our perceptions, a lot of priests, they'll say they'll kind of reference voodoo as kind of a reason for the instability of Haiti now, and it's kind of like, if they would have just accepted the Western influence in Christianity, they wouldn't be in the predicament they are now. That is, in terms of the idea of religious influence, this is how a lot of Western culture has infiltrated a lot of indigenous populations or people who don't really have a formal religion, and this is how they infiltrate the culture and really start to really take really allow colonization to take root. And it's definitely interesting to see that. It does, in terms of the influence of Christianity in general. There is definitely a misuse and abuse of that religion to populations to a lot of indigenous populations. Definitely something to think about. But in terms of this idea of really revolution with a voodoo overtone, it seems that this idea really persisted and gave root to a particular figure. And in the beginning intro statement, or in the beginning intro story, it was this is Papa Doc, right? And this is a dictator in Haiti's history, and he did a lot in Haiti in general, and he did it with this idea of really voodoo, it being a figure, or really taking on the figures of voodoo lore. And this is something that is really controversial in terms of the way in which he got influence and did influence. And me particularly, I am definitely more a mystically inclined individual, right? So when I hear about certain things, like what we talked about in this intro story, I would personally believe that there was influence in terms of Papa Doc's abilities. I would definitely, maybe not to the extent that a lot of Haitians really gave this figure, but it's definitely something that I believe was something that we really haven't taken stock of in science yet, right? In terms of this guy, Papa Doc, he had he was known throughout Haiti for this idea of him being a dictator. The influence that he had on Haiti wasn't just through an army presence or military, or the military in general. This was very much a spiritual influence over the people, or what I would call a spiritual influence or a psychological influence over the people in general. And this is something, in terms of a lot of what people, the lore behind Papa Doc, this idea of being a figure. A lot of times, Haitians, when they talked, they would look around for pets, and the idea was he could listen through the pets, or through the small animals, and sometimes the trees. And it was, in terms of that particular level of influence, that is very much very much something like you think about stories about 1984 where surveillance was everywhere, and when someone has that level of mystic influence over a population, I think people would be really surprised at the level of what is it called? The level of censorship that can take place, or self-censorship that can take place as a result. Very much something to take note of. Now, in terms of this idea of, Papa Doc, it was he could listen through animals, but he could also shapeshift and become animals if you were inclined to really believe a lot of the lore. And this idea of being a dictator, he wasn't. And we talk about how self-censorship took place. He was not a proponent of free speech, and this idea of holding, having this influence. I think this level of influence was really unprecedented at this particular time, and something that really does or really deserves note in terms of the idea of dictatorship and the influence of really holding that figure, holding a mystical, being a mystical figure for these people is tremendous. Now this author, Mr. Joseph, he was involved in a lot of the dismantling of the lore around Papa Doc, and this is like he wasn't he's Christian himself, but he developed kind of a reputation, even with those close to Papa Doc, of really being able to evade Papa Doc in certain ways. And I think this is definitely something of note, because at some point he sets up a radio show, and he sets this radio show up from New York. And this particular radio show, he was a thorn in the side of Papa Doc's, Papa Doc and his people, because he would really use his platform to taunt Papa Doc with different broadcasts, but also with by letting comedians, particularly this guy Brother Chicken, was like, they would taunt him, and the information that he got from informants who were close to Papa Doc. Like, he was, he used this idea of he kind of created a figure. He was a figurehead himself because of his ability to evade Papa Doc, in terms of being a thorn in the side. And he set up this radio show, and at some point he used this idea of being, I would say, in terms of Papa Doc and the way he kind of used voodoo, he would the author would use his knowledge of voodoo against Papa Doc. So he would do things like, at some point he like had his had different pieces of furniture rearranged around the front of his house, or pieces of something are rearranged in front of his house. I'm not. It's could have been like laundry chair or just different outdoor furniture and stuff like that. But it was. He was a. This is something that's really important, because this idea of this idea of setting in and weakening the grip, the fact that this guy was able to host a radio show and be a thorn in the side of this figure who is supposedly who may have who may have a figure that is supposedly all-knowing in a lot of ways. It started to kind of break the hold and the influence that he had over the people of Haiti. And in particular of note, I'm gonna mention this here just because we're kind of talking about we're kind of in the mystic territory, and I really want people to understand something. This idea of a radio show, and a radio show kind of being instrumental in this the revolt against Papa Doc. And I am an astrologer, right? So I study astrology, but I study a sect of astrology, particular sect of astrology that I'd call zodiacal alchemy, right? And in this particular understanding, Mercury is exalted in Aquarius, and a lot of people kind of would look like, I don't know what that means, right? And the idea of Aquarius is it holds rulership over a lot of things in terms of our everyday life, including new technologies, and the idea of we're not going to go too far into it, but in terms of the concept of revolutions, this is this idea, it holds rulership over this concept in general. So Aquarius and Uranus in someone's birth chart, that would kind of give me looking for those in terms of the placements in relation to Aquarius and the understanding of Uranus in general, in terms of the actual planet, that would give me an indicator for this person's understanding of a lot of Uranian or Aquarius themes. But a revolution is one of those themes. In terms of this idea, Mercury being exalted means that Mercury has the strongest influence in Aquarius, which means that kind of mercurial themes may be of significance when it comes down to this concept of revolution, right? And mercurial themes would include a lot of different things, including communication, a lot of themes surrounding communication, and radio shows would most certainly fall into that arena, along with like podcasts, YouTube videos, and a lot of other things that we do and watch. But this concept, right? So we have this theme of Mercury being exalted in Aquarius and having its strongest influence. Just from the perspective of zodiacal alchemy, that really kind of gives an understanding of just how important this radio show was in terms of it gives me a perspective of how important it was in terms of loosening this idea of this grip that Papa Doc essentially had over the populace. And at some point, you kind of he uses a lot of this influence of the radio show or whatever to loosen this grip, and eventually Papa Doc himself becomes paranoid, and he becomes paranoid because he doesn't know, he can't really identify the informants, and at some point he has even public issues with his own family, but he eventually falls, and he falls ill and dies of a sickness, and and his son tried to come up behind him and uphold this dictatorship, but it failed ultimately, and I think it failed to a lot of reasons. And in terms of that idea of this idea of this figure of Papa Doc and how to go about really uprooting his influence. When it comes down to this theme of Renaissance, I do look at things through, of course I can, have my quote-unquote normie vision, but also through the lens of zodiacal alchemy. And when it comes down to an idea of a Renaissance are also ruled over by Aquarius, right? So everybody has probably heard something about we're in the age of Aquarius and things of that nature. And I do believe that this idea of we're witnessing right now in 2004 or 2024 the fall of a lot of celebrities, right? And being exposed, or we're seeing a lot of celebrities exposed, and it's kind of looking less and less appealing, the celebridom of a lot of different things. And I think that's due to this kind of this idea, this age that we're in now, having its own influence over that. But also when it comes down to really this theme, communication in general, radio, I would definitely not discount as in terms of importance, but the information, Mercury is how you kind of receive information, how you perceive the world in general. So it can kind of, the information that you get, having immediate connection to the way you perceive the world. Having this is, I believe, very important, right? So how we distribute and how we communicate with one another, and the theme of communication in general, in terms of this idea of really ushering in a new way of living that really agrees with more a much higher percentage of us, if not most of us, if not all of us. This is definitely something that we should think about in terms of where we get information from, how we get information, and being careful about this concept of misinformation, because as far as a lot of us should be concerned, the government is probably the largest source of misinformation. There are weapons of mass destruction, and these or we're worried that they are, they may have these weapons of mass destruction, leading to some very serious consequences for a lot of people in general. And this is very much something, this idea of kind of what influences us and how we're influenced. I think we're going to have more control, right? So this idea of, a renaissance in any case, a lot of us, this is kind of a reconciliation between the normie vision and the zodiacal alchemy vision, because in terms of Aquarius, that is the people. It rules over the people in the power of progressive thought and behavior and stuff like that. And regardless of what you think now in terms of what's going on, leading up into the next generation is really what we have to think about, right? So, I think currently this idea of Democrats and Republicans, I think is really going to become less and less significant, right? This factor of this categorization, and I think it's really useful to the people who don't really care who's in power as long as their interests are served. And I think we'll start to see more and more, start to see that idea becoming less and less relevant in our everyday lives. And it'll become about what is good for, our particular causes, what we actually want in the world, who we want to be in the world, and the influence that we have in the world. And it'll become more about that and less about, you'll start to have this understanding develop about yourself and your particular goals, rather than kind of what we have now is, Democrats who know that they're not Republicans, and that kind of being their identity, and vice versa, and we'll come to a place to where there's a more refined definition of who we are and why we vote the way we vote and stuff like that. Now, back, in terms of the idea of this particular story, the author is actually Wyclef's relative. Now, for those who don't know, Wyclef is kind of this musician, a Haitian musician who's really grown up, who's really popular in America, who was popular in America. And I was personally a fan of his music before, and after this story and kind of hearing more of kind of his past or his story in general, I am more of a fan of him as a person. And this idea, he started making he started making music in his basement after the author kind of talked to Wyclef's dad and convinced them to let Wyclef make music, right? And this is eventually he talks to his dad and convinces him, and he comes together with this group, and they made some popular music, right? And this group is known as the Fugees, right? So for those that don't know, like Lauryn Hill, Wyclef, and there's another gentleman in the group. I apologize, but I just remember Lauryn Hill and Wyclef because they were they became more popular, or they carried their popularity kind of over from the dissolution of the group. And this guy, he in terms of, Wyclef, he wore the Haitian flag during a performance at the Grammys, and this act it really injected pride into Haitians when there was kind of a stigma. Like, our perception now of Haiti was magnified back then. So a lot of Haitians, they were trying to essentially, many of them, I imagine, were probably hiding that, their identity in terms of their actual, like, home, but this idea of him coming out with a Haitian flag during this performance at the Grammys, there was a new kind. He injected pride into Haitians, and this idea, spread. The influence spread past just the Haitian, past just Haitian influence, or past, being influential to Haiti, but also for a lot of other people in a lot of other, in a lot of other countries. You see this idea kind of spread to where a lot of people want to wear their flags of lesser known countries. And just to give you guys an idea of kind of how bad it was for Haitians, the CDC had some very some very questionable, like, kind of restrictions on Haiti in particular. Like I think during the AIDS epidemic, they couldn't even give out blood, or they couldn't take blood from Haitian people. It was pretty insane. And this idea, like, it was, it was something that was deeply felt for a lot of people, probably, to see him on that stage and perform, and very much something that I think that he would deserve a lot of credit for. At some point, he even goes to, like, to meet his the author. The author was actually into I believe he was some kind of he was a diplomat, I believe, a foreign diplomat, and he was trying to get a law passed, and Wyclef kind of used his particular, like, influence, to help him get this law passed. But also, what was very powerful, I think, a very powerful moment, is where he kind of, like, he read the law and kind of made a song for the actual law itself. And in terms of this understanding of what took place there, right? What took place because they met somewhere in, I think it was some kind of Congress room or some kind of Capitol building, I imagine this took place in. But what took place there, right? So we have an understanding of, of the English language, right? So in terms of any language in general, the power in language is to promote, to kind of delineate, or to kind of really, really translate understanding in terms of what you want to say and what is or what you need to, what you need to relate isn't often what is said. But when you sing and when you use kind of art to do this, you have a stronger understanding of. It develops a stronger understanding, I believe, of a lot of different things. And this right here, this concept is embedded into this idea of a foundry in general, right? So, and the idea for the foundry is, by the time you see this, I'm not sure if it'll be up, we'll see. But the idea is, in between entertainment, or in between or a part of it or literally during entertainment, to relay and inform the public about what goes on around them and a lot of different things, right? So to connect the population to the politics of the area, and using art to do so. This idea of this influence, right? Having this influence, in terms of being this influential figure and being a talented musician. That is that right there is something that gave me particular hope in terms of this idea of how we relate a lot of. In terms of this concept of relaying information, through entertainment in a lot of ways, and that he was effective, or the author was effective in terms of getting this particular law passed, and that's definitely kind of just the idea of kind of that situation in general, I believe, is very, very much underestimated in terms of the idea of what Wycliffe did in that particular situation. Now, in terms of this idea of him, the author being a diplomat, he had kind of a reputation. And this reputation was he was able to successfully advocate for Haiti across administrations and political parties, right? So, if for a more Republican, regardless of being a more Republican administration or Democratic administration, and he got funny, he actually got slack for this. As if one of his at some point he's attacked by, or not physically, but he's trying, these back home, they're essentially trying to smear his name with this idea and this concept of him being able to be successful across across administrations and political parties. And it was definitely interesting to see that take root, what I'm saying? Because I wouldn't believe that element of political parties, the figure himself, or the figures himself, of course, but across political parties, this idea of, that having particular influence enough to even use that to try to slander a name is crazy. And ultimately, this guy was, there was the efforts were unsuccessful. I mean, in terms of in general, he kept his name intact, and he kept his name intact through a lot of other things too. But what's notable though is this idea of administrations, and when administrations change, we have a tremendous Department of Foreign Affairs, right? So part of our kind of status as being on top is really directly related to the foreign relations that we hold and how we hold that influence in terms of it translatable to how much influence we have over other areas. And at some point when the administration changed, he had to get rid of this radio show that he had. And that was definitely something of note because, how we handle foreign relations, it seems that this is really something to think about and something to really something that requires a tremendous transformation, of course, because when it comes down to the influence that we have in this world, I don't believe, I personally don't believe that the dollar is going to be the currency. I think that the fact that we are the top tier currency, right? I think that status was due to really the illusion of us being the good guys in a lot of situations and understanding ourselves as that, right? So like being able to mobilize people is easier when we're really under this illusion of really this false illusion of being the good guys. But I think a lot of us are kind of understanding that we're simply, that's not the case. And I think that it's only a matter of time before the dollar, we have to really adjust our status abroad. And this idea of really, I would say the dollar itself in terms of how we adjust, being related to, of course, the currency being kind of a direct indicator of our status in the world as kind of as number one, right? Really, our status is due to our military influence abroad, right? Our military, our presence abroad. And this Renaissance, I believe, we're going to have to transform this element of kind of America in general, and what gives us what I think. While I don't agree with the identity politics, I do understand the idea of the power in diversity, right? So, and I think that there is something that we really are kind of gonna have to come to really understand, because this, we don't have our military understanding, our ability to mobilize people to do for military action decreases a lot. But I think that decreases a lot more when you realize we don't have diversity, in terms of like that idea of being the good guys is going to be heavily linked to this concept, whether we do it right and how we do it. I think we definitely need to work on in terms of the current the current way we interface with this concept of being a diverse country and stuff like that. But I do think that we're gonna have to do this right. But because this is really the only thing that gives us any type of morality in the world. And I think a lot of people are coming to that understanding. And we're going to have to really figure out how we transition from this overwhelming amount of military presence to really you know, to really, I suppose, more of a healthier dynamic, right? Because we have to think about who we are or how we really become the good guys rather than just advertising ourselves as such. I think that's definitely something worth thinking about in terms of what we can do with, how we can transition, particularly our influence abroad. But in terms of Haiti in general, a lot of this idea of us having influence in Haiti, we have a, across administrations, we see the dissolution of this radio show, and that's one indicator. But also, the influence that we have comes in really the form of, aid that we send to Haiti, and this idea of being able to influence Haiti. At some point, our government threatened to cut aid to, someone down the line tried to become trying to basically become a dictator by not holding elections, and we threatened, to cut aid to these people. It was very influential because, or it was definitely something that made this guy choose to have elections down the line. Very much, how we do things, what we do, definitely something to think about. I don't think, particularly, just extracting influence is going to be something that we are, something helpful when, kind of in an environment that we kind of created, when we create problems and retract ourselves. I don't believe that's what we really, really want and what would be best for the larger percent of the people in general. In terms of like this guy, he was a talented diplomat, and he kind of he was talented in terms of his ability to kind of get things done abroad or get things done through America in however way he could. But definitely like this idea of like this idea of having to end the show is something that something that we can perceive as kind of negatively affecting this idea of diplomacy in Haiti, right? So, and I think we should definitely continue to think about this concept of transforming ourselves abroad, right? Because we can send aid to these people, but also, which I don't view that as something that we want to view ourselves as being able to control people through, the aid that we send, or kind of threaten others with that concept. But we definitely do want diplomacy in terms of, democracy, not diplomacy, democracy. And that idea is what I'm thinking about when I think of democracy is people deciding how they want to be led. And we definitely do want that in general. Now, this idea of are all, like Mr. Joseph being kind of into what happened with diplomats. He also led investigations and exposed that there were diplomats misusing American funds. There were diplomats who were like essentially doing what we perceive politicians to do, but he was exposing that, and he's exposed a lot of that, which is very much something that I think of note. He kind of developed a reputation of not being able to be corrupted with money, and I think that is it's his book, but you can't help but like the guy, this is definitely something that we gotta like really really come to terms with in terms of the misuse of funds, right? Because this idea, or even like how we allow for the misuse of funds. And when I say the misuse, I don't necessarily mean legality. I mean simply misusing funds. When it comes down to, if this is your house and someone's coming to you to get 35% of what you own, the way in which that money is used, and becoming more aware of that, I think is or more like having more say in terms of how that is used is certainly something that we want to think about more. And this guy was very very much somebody who pointed that out for when it came down to diplomats and what they were doing with the funds. It's hard not to think of this guy as a good guy, and this idea of what happened with Haiti, definitely Papa Doc left his influence, right? So this dictator who was kind of a voodoo, or kind of held himself as a voodoo figure, he was very much somebody who had to be dethroned, and this guy helped do that. And also, somehow down the line, this influence that Papa Doc had, I think it was something that lured a lot of bad actors to the political field, right? And this idea of one guy, he tried to there was at some point he started, there was another, I believe, he had another position with kind of relaying public information, definitely something, forgot what exactly, but he, like, this one guy tried to pay for an interview. So pay for an interview, not just pay for an interview, but pay for an interview that he already provided answers to. So so rather than this guy asking him questions and him answering the questions, he answered questions, or I would think he recorded himself answering questions that he asked himself. It was pretty insane. But he tried to pay for that interview, and the guy said, "Nah, I'm okay. That's not the way we do interviews," which is, essentially he tried to bribe the guy for an interview, and he's just like, "Nah, it's not how we do it." At some point, one president tried to kidnap, or he was known as kidnapping. He was known for kidnapping critics, and definitely something it almost seems like everybody's trying to really live up to Papa Doc's legacy, which is crazy. But I mean, it's definitely something. At some point, this guy Martley was, he was a president, and he was trying to this is the guy who really wanted to ignore elections, and then at some point the U.S. had to threaten to not send aid to Haiti, but this guy, he was he publicly praised Papa Doc, and he surrounded himself with some openly, some pretty open criminals, like in terms of some pretty shady people, and he was using influence to essentially let these people, do what they wanted to do in the public, and that was definitely, I mean, like I said, he wanted to be Papa Doc. Like, he wanted to make, to essentially create or transition his administration, which is, like, I believe it's like 5 years, maybe 2 terms, but 5 years, and he tried to transition that into something. But at some point, he had to give it up. And he was pretty, like, he tried to put his people in positions to where they counted votes. It was very, very much shady and ridiculous, but I mean, it ended badly. It ended how it should have for him. Now, in terms of the lessons and the takeaways, I think we have a lot to take away from this story, right? And number one thing I have noted down is this idea of military in unstable countries. This is how this is how stability is gained in a lot of unstable countries. The idea of military presence and what the military can do, regardless of whether the people like it or not. If there is military influence and the people who are in charge of the military give their allegiance to whatever figure, that's it. Like that, it is done with a lot of these places. And it's definitely something to think about in terms of military capability, or military in these countries, presence in these countries, and how to really bring about the most popular solution. Now, the second thing I have written down is the importance of communication in the revolution, right? So we talked about how Mercury being exalted in Aquarius, but this guy, we talked about this guy having kind of a radio show that was really a thorn in the side to Papa Doc, but he what we didn't talk about was how he actually, at some point after the radio station, dissolved, he started kind of a publication, and it was in, I believe it wasn't in French. It was in a, I don't know what the Haiti people talking, but it was in their very familiar in their very familiar language, and he was able to kind of solidify the Haitian influence politically through this what he published, and it was very important, and it helped them, and of course dealing with I would say dealing with a lot of political things, including, I believe, what the CDC, or getting the CDC to really retract these discriminatory practices. definitely something to think about in terms of communication, how we communicate, and what that can lead to in terms of this concept of a renaissance. Number 3 is students were a big threat, and we didn't talk about this, but education had a huge role in revolutions, or had a huge role in the revolutions that took place across, I want to say Papa Doc, but also across this guy Martley, which was essentially the guy who wanted to be Papa Doc after Papa Doc, and that was he had it out for a lot of students in general because of essentially just how they thought in general, like that concept of education being a threat to power is something also in terms of France, like in the French Revolution. The idea is that you can't really it's hard to be corrupt in a society that is filled with intellectuals and or highly concentrated with this concept of intellectuals. And I think we really gotta think about what we do there, how we do, and how we really influence people to really be more educated in a lot of these situations. The third is art. Now, art promoting the policy and the governing structure, and we talked about how Wycliffe sung this song of a bill, or how sung the song from a bill, from reading a bill that that the author wanted to really relate to. I think it was some kind of governor or some kind of to some kind of representative, and that power in general. And we talked about that pretty. We talked about that pretty. I'm satisfied with how much we talked about that in terms of that particular idea, and spirituality was important, right? So I talked about a little bit about how this concept of the zodiacal alchemy, the lens of Mercury being exalted in Aquarius, but also Neptune is also exalted in Aquarius, right? And this concept is something that we don't really have an agreement across a lot of fields, right? So Mercury, the exaltation of Mercury and the exaltation of Neptune. But this concept of really Neptune would really represent a lot of spiritual figures and the spiritual leaders, and in terms of the importance in a revolution, very important. In terms of, think about I want you to imagine the priest who says, I don't abide by the rules of man, and what that does in a society. It's definitely important, but it also, like, this is at some point, this administration, the administration that the guy was trying to help set up, it needed legitimacy. This is before the wannabe dictator really took over. This is when they were kind of in a period of instability for a while, and spiritual leaders helped give legitimacy to the administration, right? And in terms of really the importance of the spiritual leaders in a community in general and what they can do. Very, very much something to think about. And this has been really Haiti and the Renaissance, and we referenced For Whom the Dogs Spy, and that is by Raymond A. Joseph. And please like and subscribe, do all the podcast stuff, and I will hopefully see you in the next video. Thank you.